Hi, yes, thank you for having us. We're going to launch straight into it because we've got a fair number of things we want to cover in a very short space of time. So we're going to start by just looking at what we mean by AI-assisted marking in Graide, what it is, and more importantly, what it isn't. We're also going to have a brief overview of what the University of Birmingham Assessment Proof of Concept project was that was completed last year using Graide. And then we're going to have a look at some of the assessment types that have benefited from the use of Graide at the University of Birmingham as well. So first of all, then, when we talk about AI-assisted marking, so when professionals hear AI and marking together, we tend to have some concerns. And I think it's really important to understand that AI-assisted marking does not involve generative AI, so it does not write feedback for markers. What it is machine learning that is used to assist human markers in applying pre-existing mark schemes and feedback. So just to go into a little bit more detail about how Graide does this specifically. So a marking scheme is created by the marker or a module lead, and they write a bank of feedback or a rubric. The marker then goes in and applies that bank of feedback and individual pieces of feedback to student work. The AI within Graide then learns how that particular marker marks and starts suggesting where they may want to apply feedback that they've used previously again. And the marker then has the option to decide whether they want to apply that particular suggested feedback or whether they want to not apply it and apply something different instead. Okay, so last academic year, the University of Birmingham created an assessment proof of concept project to find a number of individual assessment tools that would be used across the institution as a whole. And full kind of disclosure here, just to acknowledge it, that Graide is a spin out of the University of Birmingham. It was part of a PhD project. But what we did in the proof of concept was look at expanding its use in other colleges beyond where it was originally formed, which was specifically in engineering, and to see whether it would be able to be applied in other locations around the university. So the project itself was an extremely large project. It trialled Graide and another assessment tool across the university within all 5 colleges, or for anybody else, 5 faculties. University of Birmingham uses the word colleges instead of faculties, and across our 3 international locations, so UK, Dubai and China. Students and staff engaged in a series of surveys and focus groups, gauging their feelings about the assessment tool throughout the process. And we had a mixed method style analysis looking for trends across those surveys and focus groups. In terms of Graide specifically, there were 37 modules that took part in this particular trial, and just over 5,000 students who were using it. In terms of our survey responses, we got all but one of the module leads to respond to our surveys. Student numbers were much lower and didn't have any real statistical significance to them. And in terms of focus groups, we got about half of the staff. And again, student responses were much lower there as well. So in terms of student feedback, so in general, from surveys and focus groups, students were pleased with how they received feedback in Graide. They liked how it was related to specific responses and how it allowed them to identify where they'd gone wrong more easily. They did acknowledge that there was a bit of a learning curve in using the tool to make it valuable to their learning. Although that's kind of balanced out by the ability to be able to see exactly where they'd gone wrong. And although they did raise some issues in terms of the feedback that they received, that was more of a misunderstanding with the feedback itself than the tool and the purpose of the tool. And students, quite importantly, didn't have many concerns about AI assisted marking in the same way that we see those kind of levels of concerns with generative AI marking, provided that they were properly informed about the difference between the two. In terms of staff responses, staff were very pleased that it felt a lot faster marking with Graide, and they felt that it took much less time. They did recognise, however, that there is a bit of a learning curve and there is a little bit of front loading in terms of setting up your assignment in Graide, but that was kind of balanced out by the time saved in terms of the marking. And I think the kind of biggest thing to note is that 83% of those users who came to focus groups stated that they would use Graide again, and in fact are using it again this year as well and expanding their use. So I'm going to hand over to Helen now, who's going to go through some of those examples from that proof of concept project.
Yeah, so the first example we've got is more of like the classic, the kind of what Graide was designed for, which is maths. So this course, LF Mathematics, I've put their School of Engineering, but actually this course is used basically in lots of courses where students are required to know maths, but they're not mathematicians. So it probably comes up in things like physics and engineering. In terms of how Graide worked there, students had weekly mathematics exercises to complete. So they'd go in there every week and use that interface to complete these sort of maths exercises. One of the benefits that we found was that people could respond in different ways, whether that was like using a stylus, doing it on graph paper and taking a picture. And that was good for these students who weren't really super up on their mathematical notation. In terms of the AI assisted marking, it was really crucial for increasing the speed of marking. Since this was such a, it's like a weekly task, it was really important for the markers on that course that they could save some time and that it didn't become onerous. So that was kind of the use of Graide's AI assisted feedback on that course. And then I thought I'd also look at a course which was very different to that, and this was kind of pushing that usage out into a different area. So this is Introduction to Evolution and Animal Biology, and I love it. It's an exercise where they examine owl pellets and dissect them. So advantages on that one. So specifically, this was looking at writing a lab report, and specifically two elements of that lab report. So the results and the discussion. And I think the biggest benefit that was found was that it allowed for really consistent marking over a large group of markers, including PGT markers who were maybe new to that marking process and needed a bit of support. So Graide provided them with like these pre-written answers, which like the module lead had put in place, and that really supported the PGT markers, and they appreciated where the AI was used, that like support of, you might want to use this piece of feedback in this place. So yeah, super quick. I know we're kind of out of time, but that's just a couple of examples of how it was used. In terms of what we're going to do next, we're really looking into paper script scanning and sort of that space, and just trying to widen out the use of it and see where else it might be useful in other subject areas, and just kind of monitoring feelings about it and continuing to chase up that proof of concept and see how that wider rollout's going. And those are our contact details if you'd like to find out more about that project and about what we're working on.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bang on time as well. So to kick things off, you said about monitoring how people are feeling about it. I was just wondering if you could kind of maybe elaborate on that. So how are people feeling about it?
So at the moment we're getting fairly positive feedbacks. There are some the things that come back tend to be small technical niggles, which we're kind of in discussion with Graide about. They're not large scale problems that are stopping people from using it. It's just things like that button there is a little column key. Can we move it to the other side of the screen? Those kind of discussions that are coming through. We are carrying out a longitudinal study of Graide over the whole contract, where we've just managed to get through our first lot of semester 1 feedback from using it between September and now. And it's still on that kind of positive kind of note.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. Thank you. And it's nice to know that you're continuing to monitor it as well, because people's feelings change over time. So it's good to do that. There are a couple of questions. We had one from Steve, and he asked, how accurate is the OCR?
Really accurate. I was really surprised by how good the OCR was. And I think a lot of our academics who've been dealing with OCR for a long time were quite pleasantly surprised as well.
For those people that might not know what it is, are you able to just quickly explain what that is?
Yeah, so it's optical character recognition. And it's basically, if you have written like let's just say maths, a maths problem, it's able to look at that and transfer it into the kind of digital equivalent, which is something you really want to get right, because you don't want students losing marks because it's misinterpreted it. I mean, we would always say to them, just check, like just cross-reference before you press submit. But yeah, it's been pretty well received, that aspect of that technology.
Yeah, I think what's particularly nice about that OCR is that students are given the opportunity to look at what that OCR output will look like and go in and change it in Graide before they submit, which gives them just that ability to double check, which is really great for some of our Chinese students where numbers are formulated slightly differently.
Right.
And it's worked very well for them.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. I think we've probably got time for maybe one or two more questions. So we have one from Luke, and he's asked, to what degree of complexity is Graide able to help with maths marking?
So Graide isn't actually providing any of the feedback itself. It's provided directly from the module lead. So the degree of complexity is basically up to the level that the module lead has provided that support for those additional markers, rather than Graide doing any of that for you.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Thank you. And we have one more. Let me just read this. So this is from Elizabeth. In terms of using AI for translation, does anyone know if it's good? I don't think that relates to maybe this question. Yeah, don't worry about that one. Okay, I think we have actually reached time. So thank you so much. I think we do have maybe a couple more questions in the Q&A. So if you could have a look, that would be brilliant. But yeah, another great talk. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.